Hello everyone and welcome to day 3 of the Insomnia Truesilver Championship. I'm Raven and joining me to open the day is Noxious and Lothar. How are you doing, guys?
Great.
Pretty good.
Doing pretty good.
I'm just pretty good because I ended up sleeping a little too much, so I'm like half asleep. But I'm actually excited to see what the top 8 brings today.
Yep, so we're just going to go over quickly what we've done for the last 2 days. And the first day was, the format was a Swiss tournament with 103 players total, which was pretty insane, actually. And you guys like Swiss, right?
Oh, I love Swiss. That's my favorite format and brings a lot of value for the players as well because, you know, they don't need to drop after a single loss or even double loss, right? Because they still have a chance to make a good showing. And now we can see how it went for the players. So maybe we should go then say some two words about some players.
Yeah, exactly. So we saw, I think one of the big stories for me was Monleper and Ness, the 2 UK guys finishing first and second in Swiss, which is pretty awesome. But again, I think what was really good about this is we saw the quality of players, like the top-end pros, or a lot of them at least, get through and make that top 16.
Right.
And then we still had a few surprises about some like lesser-known players to the extent of seeing, like we saw Penny come through, and although Ignite is a name that's known around the Hearthstone scene, he's not exactly one of the huge superstar names as well. So really good performance by him. Are there any ones that stand out for you, Noxus?
I want to say the Flow team, right? Like you've got Two Beers, you've got Johnny Stone, you've got Camlan that ended up making it to the top 16. That's 3 people in the same team, kind of like the G2 situation.
Yep.
However, I think only Camlan is left of this team, and Life Coach. So each team maintained a single player through the top 8, which is kind of interesting because we assumed, well, maybe, the 3 of them for each team are going to make it through. Not quite the case.
Yep, so this was the top 16 that made it through to day 2, and these guys are then just split into 4 groups, starting with Group A. What do you think of this, Lothar?
Well, this is the Group A that we had yesterday, the group stage double elimination, and this group was with the winner of the Swiss, featuring Modern Leper, but unfortunately for Modern Leper, after the defeatless 7 rounds of Swiss, he unfortunately didn't advance for Group A. So that's like the big story of this group, and Powder and Pokrovak made it through, which is not a big surprise. It was a stacked group anyway, right?
Yep.
Tubius made a name for himself recently, but with Arena, so no one was expecting him to do like super well here. But at the same time, he made it to the top 16 and to the day 2, right?
Yeah, really good performance overall, and then we had a Provac go through as well, who's recently done really well at the EU Championships. Now we have Group B.
Yeah, I mean, I want to say that Zalay coming through here, we saw him yesterday play a little bit of his Rogue, and it's interesting, we saw Shade of Naxxramas that did a lot of work in the games that it came up in, and it actually knocked Ness down to have to fight against Johnny Stone, which he ended up beating. So Ness being kind of a local, I want to say, player that has a chance to make a big name for himself. He's been around, he's been doing consistently well. For Insomnia, last time we had one, he did okay, but didn't quite get to where he wanted. Made a few misplays, but I feel like his gameplay improved a lot since then.
Yeah, we definitely saw an improvement over the time from his first set on stage to the second set. We saw an instant improvement, which is really good for him.
And I want to point out RDU, the champion from the first Insomnia, not making it through the top 8. A little unfortunate for him. I'm pretty sure he was somewhat tilted after all this. Knowing him and his expectations, he seemed really confident when I spoke to him before the tournament. His lineups, his understanding of the metagame. And I have to say, after talking with him, his expectations of what would be played were spot on. Every single thing that he told me about what he expected seemed true from what we saw from the decks that were played.
Yep, so we had Zalay and Ness go through Group B, and in Group C, pretty much known as the Group of Death, right, Lothar?
Yeah, the C as in death. So Ignite, Super JJ, Dog, and Life Coach made this group just look outstanding when compared to other groups. And whoever made out of this group would be like, yeah, he should have made it, right? But 4 players, all of those are really top-tier players, and only 2 could have advanced. And the 2 that advanced were Life Coach and Dog, so 2 Americans. Advancing to day 3, while Life Coach was, well, we will know it in a second, but Life Coach is the only player that advanced to day 3 as well. This is the group of death. It was really interesting to watch. Unfortunate for Ignite, even though he had the 6-1 run in Swiss, it didn't end well for him. The same story as for Modern Leper, almost the same.
Yeah, exactly. It just shows how difficult the tournament is overall. You have to perform well in Swiss, and then once you're through, although there's seeding that comes into it, you can easily just drop through and drop out in these rounds, which is really difficult. And then we move on to Group D,
Yeah, I mean, one of the things to say as well about Swiss is that it is the beginning of the tournament, and then you can change your decks to adapt to the new format. But you still end up having to face off against some of the toughest competition from the Swiss in case you hadn't run into it. Now, you've got Xixo here that ended up being relegated to the bottom bracket initially against Camlan, and then still makes it to the top 8. Camlan ends up climbing to the top, and Xixo from the bottom going through Thais. We saw that yesterday. That match was very difficult for Thais. Everything seemed to kind of go against him, playing off against Xixo. One of the things that I want to point out is that overall, there were a lot of matches that with decks that we didn't expect coming from all these players. I feel like the metagame, for all its staleness, still managed to look interesting this time around.
Because we had Last Hero Standing.
Right, Last Hero Standing being the reason why that's the case.
Yeah, because you can basically counter your opponent decks, so you have more freedom when it comes to building your decks as well, and you can take advantage of having a surprise factor. Because if your deck caught your opponent off guard, then you can win 3-0 just because you played something that is not really popular. By the way, I'm really getting just caught off guard by that nipple in the background, the graphics.
What is what?
That's
Is that Garrosh?
No, that's the orc from the Hearthstone.
Oh, okay.
So moving on.
Why did they pick that exact image for the background? I almost could not tell, but now that you mention, I can't unsee it. And
we will try by moving on to the next one, which is so at the end of yesterday, we had all of those players that made it through go into the final top 8. And the way this bracket was created was the winner of any group faced the second place from any other group. So there'll be no rematches in the first game. So we do start off with SK Powder versus Navi Xixo. We have Archon Zalay and Liquid Dog, so the two Americans going out in the round 1 of the top 8. We have G2 Life Coach versus Torpedoes Gaming Ness, and then Flo Camlin versus Estuba's Provac. So what games are you excited for mainly here?
Oh, well, I'm looking forward to Life Coach versus Ness, because of course he's my teammate. But really interesting thing is that both of the Americans will be battling against each other.
Right, so it's basically rigged to make it so EU is guaranteed to do something well overall. I mean, there's almost no way.
Come on.
And you can say that at least one American is guaranteed
to get to the top 4, I guess, yes,
so
if you put it that way. Yeah, you're right. So we'll see whether or not Zalay or Dog takes the cake there, because it looks like from the lineups that we're playing, Dog seemed to he felt more comfortable, I feel, with his deck. But the Shade of Nax from Zalay, I really want to see that deck in action. And I also want to see the Priest from Ness come into play. I want to see how that ends up working out.
Yeah, I'm actually looking forward to Ness and Life Coach as well, because it seems very much a David and Goliath story as well. We see Life Coach, one of the huge names in Hearthstone, and has been pretty much from day one, versus Ness, who's much more of an up-and-comer and has some good performances in Insomnia tournaments and local tournaments recently, but really wants that big performance after maybe dropping a little bit short last time.
Yep.
But the first game we're going to have is actually going to be SK Powder versus Navi Xixo, so that's going to be a really good game. And who do you think is actually going to take this one?
Well, I spent a lot of time with Powder in general during our Hearthstone careers, and I really like the guy. So I would really like to have him win a tournament at some point, right? Because he's always in the top. He's always top 16, always top 8, or in the finals, and he's always falling short a little bit. So maybe that's his time to shine. But when it comes to Xixo, well, he's known for being a consistent player. He won a lot of tournaments. Most of them were while he was advancing for the open qualifiers. So he's a strong contender. I think it will be a very interesting match to see how it will be,
And I feel like Powder as well, we haven't really mentioned him too much, but he's been silently and steadily going through the tournament. There was no flashes, but everything just kind of worked out.
Yeah, and especially because he was in the first group. He was in Group A. His games were all done by about midday yesterday, so it was just and then all the focus shift to the rest of the groups. But I was speaking to Powder as well, and he seems really happy and just very calm and relaxed about it and pretty confident about taking the series. But we did actually get a chance to sit down with the players and see what they thought about the tournament so far in their performance and what they actually think about what's going to happen today in the top 8.
To be through to the final, it's always fantastic. It's always a nice feeling when you win, so I'm really happy and I'm looking forward to tomorrow. When preparing for a tournament like this, you kind of have to prepare for the Swiss more than the really good players. So when I prepared for this, I expected a lot of Zoo, a lot of Druid. So I kind of prepared for that. What motivates most is probably just to get my first win. I've been in the semis and the finals a lot, but I've never found that one win, so I hope this is my tournament, but it always feels like that when you're winning, and then eventually you do lose, but eventually I'm hoping it's gonna be my tournament, so maybe this one.
I'm Xixo and I play for Navi. I play Hearthstone to make other people lose. In the Swiss I went 6-1 and my tiebreaker was good enough that I would have even made it if I lost one game with 5-2, so it was like pretty clean for me. But in the groups I lost my first match, so I had to go from the losers match to the decider match, so that felt kind of rough to lose. I played against Kalman in the last one of Swiss and then directly the first one of groups, and his lineup, say, was like slightly favored against mine. So if he would have lost against Thijs, I would have had like to play against him the third time. I got lucky that Thijs lost and I had a good lineup against Thijs.
So there we have it, and it's Powder seems quite happy. He went through winning his group, quite like we said, quite quietly, and just plowed on and just took the group. Where Xixo had a bit of a rougher matchup, really, and just said he was really glad he didn't have to play Camlin again because of lineups, and that comes into it really importantly. And speaking of lineups, Powder versus Xixo, and Powder is rocking the Druid, the Aggro Shaman we saw, and the Warrior versus the Paladin, the Warrior, and the Warlock from Xixo. What guys do you think about this lineup?
There's one really important thing that stands out, is that Xixo is not playing Druid.
Right. Big deal there. I have to say, not playing Druid might be okay in some cases. We've seen a lot of players actually get punished, obviously, for not playing the class. Xixo ended up playing against an opponent who wasn't playing Druid either, I think at some point. And it's difficult. I feel like that decision not to bring Druid means that you're teching super hard, or at least hoping that your deck lists, all of them can beat that deck. And based on what Xixo's brought, I'm seeing Patron, I'm seeing probably like a Zoo Warlock and Secret Paladin. I imagine he's there with this lineup to beat the Druids that will be everywhere.
Yeah, I think it's actually Murloc Paladin.
Yeah, it's
the Xixo's got.
Oh, the Murloc, that's right.
Anything can happen.
Yeah.
Paladin, which is a great deck against every other control deck, right?
Yeah.
Because they are super slow, so you're not really, in a hurry to defend yourself from the onslaught, right? So you can get to the point where you just play 10-10, anything can happen, deal 20 damage, 10-11, anything can happen, deal 40 damage.
Yeah.
Exactly, it's the second anything that really kills you off in the control matchups. But it is going to be the Patron Warrior of Xixo versus the Aggro Shaman of Powder, and a lot of these Aggro Shamans have been doing really well. We saw, I think, Ignite had an insane score in Swiss with his Shaman.
Right, 12.
And Powder's been doing the same. I think he 3-0'd his first match in his group and then went 2-0 with it at the start of his second match. So really strong showing here, and even his opening hand seems pretty okay.
Yeah, I feel like Powder here picks up the Trog. He's probably very happy. Picks up, the Flame Juggler as a 2-drop. Pretty happy. God opening for Powder, but 6-0 with the double Armor Smith, the Fiery War Axe, and also the Dread Corsair to follow it up if he ever needs a taunt. So both players with outstanding starting hands.
Yeah, that's true. Like the Trog, of course, it's a dream for the opening hand, but the Fiery War Axe is just a crusher of dreams.
Yeah, however, the Totem Golem, at the very least, will be able to do work. The only thing that Powder here doesn't want to see is Inner Rage or Cruel Taskmaster, finishing off the 3-4 minion.
Yeah, this is the power of the Totem Golem, especially versus Warrior. There's really, other than like a very early execute, there's no easy way to clear this off until turn 4, and you can equip that Death Bite. So it's pretty tough. You're going to see the Armor Smith just get dropped down, and even just passing on the weapon, there's no real point hitting in, especially as he's building up to maybe a Frothing or a Kor'kron, and he wants to also drop the Dread Corsair next turn, I imagine.
Right.
Flame Juggler will be really important here. Oh, and it hits the Armor Smith. I feel like even if you're playing a Phase Shaman deck, you need to destroy that Armor Smith as soon as possible, especially when you play against a deck that has access to multiple AoE effects.
Right. They could also use Slam to, to start damaging the Totem Golem, finish it off with the Axe, and then you're stuck with a 1-4 Armor Smith you simply can't handle. So this is a very tough start for Powder, who thought he had a great hand. Looks like it's going to be a little weaker than he expected. He still has decent follow-ups. Once he deals with this board, he's hoping that he's going to be able to finally go through to the face. But little does he know, there's a Frothing, there's a Finley, there's a Kor'kron, and there's a lot more in the deck that can help Powder clean up the board.
Yeah, the positive thing here for Powder is that he is going to be able to deal with the Armor Smith quite quickly, not this turn, but maybe in the next turn. And once that's gone, it's gone, right? There's like both Armor Smiths finished, so he doesn't have to worry about anything too crazy. happening later on.
So here's a question: do you want to play Kor'kron to get stuff, killed right away, or do you prefer playing 2 minions now in order to invest maybe a little bit more on the board, pick up a hero power you like more than this one, like let's say?
I like
Priest?
being proactive here.
That's
and
what I
being proactive is just charging into the minion, because basically you have to think about the Kor'kron Elite here as a heal spell. You destroy a minion and destroy a second one, because basically the 1 HP point left for Kor'kron will mean that another card has to be sacrificed to kill the Kor'kron Elite as well. So basically you heal 2 HP points, you get 1 from Armor Smith, and you still leave a threat on board, which is very important to get the tempo going for the warrior.
Like this attack here, make sure that both his minions are on 1 health. He's got the option of not attacking into the Kor'kron and letting it die to the wolf, but he opts to keep the wolf alive and trade away the flame juggler instead.
Yeah, I mean, it's generally more valuable, right? It just has taunt, and the other one doesn't, so why not? But yeah, I really like the Kor'kron play, just because he gains the instant armor as well. And you know what? 1 armor against this deck, against Aggro Shaman, yeah, it actually makes a huge difference, especially because that was his last Armor Smith. So you may as well just get everything you can out of it. He does drop the Acolyte, really actually needing that card draw, I think, now. Dropping 2 Frothing Berserkers next turn, it could be all good and well, but he needs definitely needs a weapon now. I think Deathbite is going to be super important in the next couple of turns if he can draw into it. But there's the Doomhammer, which is huge. It's so much damage over a period of time.
Yeah.
So is Powder playing the version with Assassin Knowledge or Loot Hoarders? I can't remember.
I feel like Ancestral Knowledge would be the one Powder plays. I know that Orange was probably the only player bringing the Loot Hoarders in his deck.
Yeah, I think Powder is playing the Gilbin Stalker, though, which was the sort of the newish tech that we've seen out of mainly the SK guys.
Yeah.
Well, 3 mana, 2 4/4s that'll get boosted is something not to ignore. And Powder has 5 mana left, so there are a lot of options. You can use a Crackle to destroy one of the floating Berserkers, because you can't really leave those on right now.
Yeah.
This is the situation when you can't really raise the warrior, because he's at 28 damage, so I wouldn't be surprised to just see the Crackle and the Argent Horse Rider to finish off both of them, hopefully, right?
I mean, would you trade the Leper Gnome away right away?
No.
Or because if an AoE hits, then the Divine Shield may be more valuable?
That's a good point, actually.
Yeah, we did actually see yesterday in Powder's match where he chose to not play around a swipe in a Druid because he just valued having more minions on board, and the hope that the AoE doesn't come down and you can just repeat the damage from each minion.
I love that play there. He actually decided to tank all the damage, knowing full well that he would be fine. But look at that Crackle, whiffing completely, and he's gonna go into the Whirlwind if there is one.
Well, he's playing somehow around the Whirlwind with the heal right now.
Yeah.
A little bit, yeah.
But it's just 1 minion that is resistant to that.
Oh,
Still no Whirlwind
Dr.
effect, but Dr. Boom on 7 is a huge draw.
Yeah, and also Xixo being on 26 health, he can afford to do this. There are a lot of games where the Aggro Shaman at this point has you down to like 6.
Well, this is a really big draw there for Powder. You don't always have a way to enable the Flame Tongue, but this is a full board that's not really been challenged too much by Xixo yet. He played minions on curve, everything kind of went well, but this is a lot of damage coming in.
I would love to see the boost, the buff from the totem on the taunted up.
The wolf.
With the wolf, because the wolf will probably not be at the target of the attack of the bombs, right? Because at 3 HP, it doesn't really make sense to attack it.
Right, absolutely.
So the weapon would have been used to destroy the taunt, and then you still have the buff from the totem on other minions as well.
Well, looks like we're going all in from Powder's side. He's seen 2 Armor Smiths, right? The only way to gain armor in that deck outside of the hero power is pretty much out of the way.
Yeah, and I like this as well because he's got 2 taunts up, the Dr. Boom, he's not going to die, right? He has like 1 or 2 turns till he's got even close to dying from Xixo's side. So Powder's there just going to use all the damage he can, push face, and hope it's going to be enough. And with the Doomhammer almost guaranteeing doing 4 next turn, because we can't see any taunts in Xixo's hand, this is going to be pretty rough if Xixo can survive this next turn, especially when the Boombots its face, which is probably not really what Xixo wanted to see.
Yeah, he either wants to get the Flame Tongue dead to execute, or have the Boombots kill the healing totem, and it does, so at least things are being cleaned up. There's a chance that he picks up the Priest hero power after armoring up if he goes for the armor up and Finley, so giving him a little bit more health.
I would love to see that, because it can also be the Druid hero power,
right,
which gives you 1 HP. So you have
Or the
few
shaman for the taunt. At this point, anything goes, but...
That's like the best worst case scenario.
Right.
But yeah, I think he almost needs to. There's 4 damage already, equipped and available, and he's only on 5. He's going to go up to 7 with the hero power, and is he going to go for the Acolyte?
Well, that's
Okay.
interesting.
All
He
right.
needs to draw 3 damage,
And, well, there...
and that's 3 damage.
It looks like 3
Okay.
damage to me.
I'm really surprised that Xixo went for the Acolyte of Pain instead of the Finley,
Yeah.
because basically, what does he have left in
There's
the deck?
2
That,
chances. Right.
but what does he need from the deck? He played both Iron Smiths, right? He's not
He needs
playing
Red
Shield
Corsair,
Wall.
maybe.
One Dread Corsair was
Right.
and you have basically a card draw in the hands, like a metaphor, right? It's a metaphor card draw from the Finley.
Right.
Because you basically get a card.
An extra ability on
Yes,
that turn, right?
Which is basically like a draw, and that draw can give you the 1 HP from the Druid, 2 HP from the Priest hero power, right? So there are a lot of options to have a better.
Yeah, and also the thing is, he still had Boom on board, which Powder was never going to kill,
Yeah.
and he had Grom, so he could have just killed him in the next turn if he got like an inner rage or anything, so
Right.
he didn't need to draw into too much when he had so much damage available to him. I felt that going defensive, because the odds on an aggro shaman not drawing 3 damage that late into the game when there's still another Lava Burst in the deck, I think another Crackle, he only used 1,
Another
right?
Bolt, a Rock Biter.
Exactly.
And
There's
even with a Flame
another-
Tongue, a Horse Rider works. The
Yeah,
thing is, I
Horse
guess in
Rider
a
as
list
well.
like this one, there's the chance to whiff on piloted shredders. We've seen quite a few of those in the list that in the tournament. Gilbin Stalker is kind of a whiff in a spot like this. You've got a few draws that would not give the Shaman lethal. But ultimately, yeah, I feel like the safer play of the Finley might have been correct for Xixo.
Yep, but the next match is going to be Xixo locking in his Zoo versus Powder's Shaman again, because this is last hero standing as well. So if you win with a deck, you hold on to it, and if you lose, you actually lose the ability to play that deck in this series.
Yeah, but this is very difficult for Xixo because now the Patron Warrior is out of the way, and Zoo is not exactly the deck you want to run with against an aggro shaman.
I feel like you
necessarily.
actually want to run Zoo into the aggro.
Sure, if you get the good taunts, you're good because you keep tempoing him out. But the type of list that this aggro shaman is playing has more minions. I feel it's playing a lot more for board control than the older list.
That's a good point.
Yep.
So it does make Zoo's powerful board control a little less effective.
Yep, so the opening hand for Xixo looks not great. It's I would say it's
Looks not great,
Well,
yes.
I was going to say because I would say it's okay because the Egg and the Peddler are good openings, and he has the Argus, so
Right.
it's okay. It's not terrible, but it's definitely not a perfect opening whatsoever. Oh,
Now Powder's got to figure out, well, is there a PO in that hand? Can I unstealth my minions without
You have to. I don't
problems?
think you can actually
Wait.
remain.
well, what's interesting here is as well, I think yesterday I was talking to Powder about this deck, and he said the amount of times he's gone turn 2 onto the Flametongue Totem, onto the 1 minion he played turn 1, and just go face and just won off the back of that, because then it gives your opponent 2 minions they have to deal with. They have to deal with the minion, and then the Flametongue Totem is going to provide so much of a threat that it just slows their opponent down a lot, and then they can just
Right.
build on that. So even though the Flame Juggler just looks like the more obvious play here, it wouldn't surprise me too much if he played the Flame Tongue and just hit him in the face.
Yeah, I mean, the upside of the... whoa! And the attempt at clearing out this board there. This better hit for 4 and the whiff. That was
be honest-
insanely ballsy.
To be honest,
About
I
it.
didn't like that decision at all.
I feel like that might have been a bit of an overcommitment.
It was so safe
Right.
that it was so risky in the process. Like,
That's exactly it. Yeah.
if you lose that crackle, which is of course a 25% roll, but if you lose that crackle, you basically throw the entire game because you enable your opponent's spider immediately, giving him charge basically, and buys your opponent time as well. It gives you overload, and you lose card advantage.
And this is even worse with the Soulfire being picked up by Peddler, because the 4-1 will not die unless the Flame Juggler decides to hit the perfect target.
Unless the Flame Juggler decides that he's going
Decides,
to
yeah, he's gonna, I'm gonna be useful.
Does he decide?
here.
Oh, of course he does.
Oh, why would he not?
Everything as planned.
No drawback. That was all expected.
I think what was really strange about Powder's play there was his 2 minions were on, if he played the Flame Jugger that previous turn, were on 3 health. So his opponent would need a Power Overwhelming or double Abusive to actually, like kill the minion.
Which is why I thought he would let it live, right? Like the odds of the opponent having exactly what he needed, it would have had to be a Peddler into PO or just a straight up Power Overwhelming. And if it's used this early, you still have the Crackle to do exactly what you did.
Yeah, a very good point.
Yeah, and the Finley does come down this turn, I think mainly because he wants to not be overloaded for the Doomhammer, because you're trying to quit Doomhammer as soon as possible, especially in this matchup where actually trading against the
I suspect we'll still see it though.
I think what Powder was looking for was the ability to deal 1 damage to get rid of that 3-1 minion.
Yeah, well, let's hope for him that the Feral Spirit is going to be justified here.
Yep.
What I like about this is that even if you end up losing one of the Wolves to the 3-1, because you still have 2 open mana with a Rock Biter, you're able to deal with most of what the Zoo would try to do. Well, never mind. That's a Lightning Storm requirement.
No one plays Lightning Storms anymore, unfortunately.
They're
I love the
gone.
Phase Shaman version with the Elemental Destructions, to be honest.
Yeah, Xixo is the one I think that I saw play it first in Insomnia. In fact, last time I saw this.
Yeah, it's really good as well because at the time the idea is it's actually a comeback mechanism that works because you still play Ancestral Knowledge, so you can still draw into cards late game and then push through that, and you still run Lava Shock, which just removes all that overload as well. So it seems pretty good, but at the moment after that implosion, Powder's just going to try and work on cleaning this board up, and he just drops the Flame Tongue because why not at this point? He just needs to play another minion.
So I would say that the Giant would be insanely good to drop this turn if he would still have one of the Defensive Argus in his hand.
It's not still a very good play though, given that the Shaman does not run any hexes. You've seen a Crackle that can technically, in some cases, roll high, just whiff. And so the amount of cards that will be needed for Powder to use to deal with this Giant is too many.
Look at that. It's turn 6 and the Warlock is at 30 HP.
Yeah.
Everything because of that attack and Crackle into the egg.
I feel like Powder, we talked about this before, right? The way that he plays safe sometimes can be a bit of an issue. So I feel like Powder's line of play, even though the reasoning behind it, I understand. Like the potential gain was good. If it worked, it was insanely powerful because you didn't lose your 2-3. There's no power overwhelming target ever. But that 25% chance to lose the game straight up is maybe not making this gamble worth it.
I understand what you're saying, but I think the Shaman is just a different archetype.
Right.
And if a card deals damage once, it's already done its job.
Yeah,
So
you have
different
to do that, right?
It's different than Zoo, because basically what Powder was trying to do is to play the Zoo's game. And
With
you
his
think-
own deck, yeah.
Yes, and you have a deck that is actually way worse than Zoo in this regard, right? So
Absolutely.
Why wouldn't you just want to stick to your own strategy and deal the damage and go for the win as soon as possible, because you can't really outrun Zoo when it comes to board
Can't
control.
outrun, yes, that's right.
Yep, and this Voidwalker is actually going to be really rough. I mean, he's in a rough position anyway, regardless, but he can't even easily take it down. Well, it's like the Rock
You can
Biter
use the
on it.
Horse
but-
Rider. You can use the
Yeah,
Horse Rider and
yeah, you take too much damage though.
But you
and-
die.
Yeah,
They're
exactly.
still lethal on board.
Yep, so Xixo does even it up with his Zoo and just removes Powder Shaman from the set here. And it's gonna be a tough one for Powder, I think, because Zoo's just a pretty overall just solid deck, and it's obviously why a lot of players are bringing it to the today.
Right. I don't know. I feel like this game was thrown out the window by
Yes,
Powder.
it was. In my opinion, it was. Powder was playing just switch the gear in backwards. you know?
Backwards, yeah. I think, I mean, you were alluding to the fact that that Crackle was not correct. And I feel like there were many lines of play you could have taken past this point to still keep that Crackle value for versatility purposes and get away with a little bit more flexibility in the future. Now, we see Powder bringing out the Control Warrior against the Zoo. How is the matchup nowadays?
With the Deathlords, that's quite different. Because the value from Deathlord will be insane good if there will be no egg into PO, an example. So the Deathlord will be giving Powder a lot of time to develop the board as well. And Warriors in general, one of the classes that can benefit from the execute and the Deathlord really heavily. So he has a really insane opening hand, to be honest.
Yeah, the opening hand's really good from Powder. Just even, like you said, just getting off an early execute is fine, just to slow the Zoo player down. Because your real aim here is to actually just clear the board. and just keep the Zoo's board empty, and then they can just never really do anything. Cards like Power Overwhelming, Abusive Sergeant can't really get any work done if there's no minions to proc off them.
Right.
It even draws into a Bash as well, which is just another like really good removal card, whilst putting the Warrior further out of range of the Zoo burst potential.
Yeah, you look at Garrosh there, like he's in flames. 500 wins out of that Warrior for Powder, and this hand is basically the trademark. Yeah, I can't lose this ever again.
Yeah, and the good thing about Deathlord, especially versus Zoo, is that one of the like easy answers to a Deathlord, depending on what deck you play, is like just owl it and ignore it. But then the 2/8 is going to trade really well against all the smaller Zoo minions.
Yeah, now I have to wonder though how different is maybe the matchup when you're playing the Sea Giant version that Xixo has. There are big minions where you demand and execute.
Or a big game hunter, that's
true, that's right. You do give them a target for that. There's probably a Mal'Ganis somewhere deep in that deck if he plays Void Callers.
With the Sea Giants?
No, I'm asking because we saw a list that was running like a mix of the Sea Giant Mal'Ganis in the tournament.
Yeah, I think when you see the Bran and the Gormok, it's probably not got any demons in Xixo's specific list.
Right.
I really like what Xixo just did with the Defender Vargas because he didn't toned up the Haunted Creeper. Because the reason why is that the Haunted Creeper was played first before the weapon. So the weapon Death Rattle would be triggered after the Death Rattle from the Haunted Creeper if it would be attacked. So in the process, both 1/1s would have been killed with the Whirlwind effect from the Death Spite. So I really like protecting the Haunted Creeper right now.
Yeah, Powder does have an option if he really wants to slam the Creeper and then clear off that, but he still wouldn't kill the 2/3 anyway with the weapon attack. So definitely not worthwhile, and I like just the Deathlord is just safe. Hold on to the weapon,
Look
why
at this
not?
Gormok.
Look at this Bronzebeard with double Surgeons.
I mean,
But
you've
do you
got
want
the
to play
option
into
of
the Whirlwind? That's the problem. That's the only problem.
You could play just the Gormok, right?
Yeah.
Abusive Gormok for 4, and then you still have a really clean trade. You played into the Whirlwind a little bit. If there's a bash and a slam,
It's
you're in
going to come out
trouble.
of the Deathlord.
Oh goodness, that execute finds the target.
That's actually not bad for Powder. When you think about it, there's a bash,
There's a slam.
and
But he
you,
needs to
you
execute.
can bash the Gormok, attack into the 2/2 with the taunt, and then execute 7/7.
I think you leave the spider alive. That's all that stays up, basically.
Yes,
That is essentially all.
I think the brand Bronzebeard will bring a lot of value to the table when a single Dark Peddler will be just, showing up.
That's true. It will prevent Xixo from having to pay for the life tap. So I do like that. It'll give him a little bit more card draw out of what otherwise looks a little boring.
Yeah, that Deathlord was nuts though, because at first as Xixo he would have been like, oh, a free 7/7, not bad. But when Powder can instantly just answer the whole board, that's got to be a little bit demoralizing there.
Yeah, but right now there's no immediate, there's no easy answer to this entire board. So for now, Powder is gonna have to try to scramble to deal with this Bran, and he wants to deal with Bran. as soon as
Slam
possible.
bash.
Slam bash, or you develop Justicar, but I like the slam bash way too much not to put it on the board.
Yeah, although I think because there's not much actual damage on the board, even though Bran is a threat, I kind of like just dropping Justicar here. You just get it down straight away. You're nowhere even close to dying next turn. And then against Zoo especially, because he's got a follow-up of, he's got weapons, he's got slam, bash, execute. He follows up by clearing or trying to clear the board next turn, and then he just cashes in on that 4 armor every single turn. And if you can clear the board as well versus Zoo, they're never going to be able to burst you down.
To be honest, I agree with your reasoning. If that would be any other creature
Oh,
than Brand Bronzebeard,
goodness.
I would just instantly slam the Justicar. But when I see Brand Bronzebeard, I'm like, no, I can't really allow Zoo to bank on those double battle cries.
Right.
Because the single Dark Peddler, a single Defender of Argus, a single Abuser Sergeant brings so much immediate effect on the board. It's really huge.
Well, it just enhances what Zoo is already good at, right? All the trading up, the extra additional buffs and damage. Bran Bronzebeard literally doubles them all. So I understand that it is a huge threat, and he's going to just play Corruption. And this is pretty nice, unless he kills being able to kill the Voidwalker. This 6/3 is just going to run into the 1/3 Voidwalker and then just die off the turn after.
Yeah, very good hand though for Powder. Again, that Justicar will pay off in the long term. But for now, I don't think he's going to get too many opportunities to just armor up, right? So he's going to have to use his mana almost fully just to clean up everything.
Oh, the weapon and Belcher seems okay.
Yeah.
Kinda like that.
Weapon into the 1-3, use the 6-3 to kill off Bran, and the Belcher, like you said. And what's really good is the weapon's going to be there next turn as well, and you know there's going to be a use for it against Zoo no matter what.
Still, look at that armor up that he got from Justicar, not coming in handy just yet. And with the amount of pressure that Xixo can put together in the next few turns, assuming he had a PO of his own that wasn't from, that he picked up a Peddler PO, that is, he would have a lot more damage this turn.
That was actually a huge roll because you don't have to enable your egg, so you still have an option to play around draw. This is a huge roll.
And Revenge is a huge draw.
Not bad.
Not bad at all.
Seems good. So now you pretty much just, I mean, he could attack into the egg, Revenge, and execute, and just remove, like...
You attack the egg, yeah. You bash it,
He could also just attack the Creeper, and then just leave the egg on the board. He doesn't even have Brawl, so why is he bothered about the egg at the moment?
Imagine that it would have been Whirlwind. You just play
Whirlwind,
Dr. Boom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the
Welcome
power.
to hell.
This is the power of the difference between 1 mana and 2 mana. It doesn't sound like much because, like, what's the difference between 4 and 5, right?
Right.
But between 1 and 2, there's a huge difference when it comes to squeezing those cards together in a turn.
Yeah, and especially in a control deck, you normally have the space to, like just squeeze in those, 1 mana cards. So I agree, it's pretty huge. But the Revenge could have later on if he was at lower health, could have sweeped a board of 3 health minions. So that's the trade-off you get for the extra mana there.
Yeah, the Revenge, I think, was key, because that turn looked a little bit difficult to weave in a Hero Power on, but because of the Revenge, he was able to do a lot more work with a little less mana. And now he's going to get 4 armor every single turn, pretty much, past this point.
The problem is 2 Sea Giants for almost 0 mana.
Yeah, these boom bots are going to have to do their fair share of work, and that should negate at least one of them. We'll see how Xixo decides to play this turn. The Implosion is very appealing.
And you don't want to overextend with both Giants.
Right, and haven't seen a Brawl.
Yes, you didn't see a Brawl, but at the same time you didn't see a Big Game Hunter, and you also one Execute.
Yep.
No Shield Slams.
That's right.
And another Implosion for 4 damage.
Now the problem is, if you want to play any giant, you have to at least lose a minion, right? So the option of going for PO, like if you power overwhelm the egg to kill Dr. Boom, then you're overextending into Brawl very heavily.
Yeah, and also this is also where the sort of Sea Giant maths comes into play as well, because you think, oh, okay, well I'll just trade the 2-1 away into a 1-1 or something, and then the Boombot kills another minion, and suddenly the Sea Giants cost more, and it's like, it can all go wrong. This is the safe play, just power overwhelming, clear off Dr. Boom, even though it was a lot of overkill, but it just guarantees easy Sea Giant with still a full board, and there is a shield slam. Wow.
Another minion to stop the aggression from Xixo.
So, do you actually prefer the trade Execute here because you can guarantee and being able to use Execute, or although he has Slam,
might
right?
lose armor.
Yeah, so you go Shield Slam for the other reason that you can't guarantee armor next turn.
Well, you might still be able to, Slam Execute for the draw. It's not half bad.
To be honest, I would rather just keep the bombs alive this turn even.
Yeah, I was deciding to choose that Slam wasn't in his hand. So let's change it a little bit. He does just go for the Shield Slam to remove it, and he has Slam Execute for the next Giant as well, so that's going to be huge. And is he going to trade?
I don't like those trades. I would love to
This could be a
see
bit clunky.
Belcher drop on the board and deal 2 damage to your opponent's face, because then he has to trade with the Belcher first. Your bombs still will have value next turn to get you the Execute going on, and
Less imps to hit with them.
less imps to hit.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And also he just saw a power overwhelming, which is the scary thing. When there's an imp on the board, you play Belcher and they just go PO, kill it. You're like, oh, okay, that's a little bit rough. But he did just see a power overwhelming. And now on Xixo's hand there is an Owl, Defender of Argus, and he can play the Sea Giant as well.
Yeah, kind of liking this play here from Xixo. He's like, you know what, at some point you're going to have Brawl, and this is the turn where you need it.
Yeah.
If you don't have it, I might be able to take over this game.
But we can see that Powder's going to be still, I think, in a good position. Ooh, the one hit was kind of weird. They didn't summon additional token, but the one hit still not doing too much that in Gang Boss. But he does have the Slam Execute, which is huge. Removes the second Sea Giant. and one of the only major threats left in the deck.
Yeah.
No brawl left, but the Sylvanas is definitely not a bad draw here.
Yeah.
Even if there's no brawl, you still have some insurance because the damage is not that high. It's only 4, 6, 8, 10 damage when you think about it. Now decrease to 8, and you will gain 4 HP each turn now. That seems fine.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel bad for
And
Powder.
also, none of these minions stick out as like too powerful, but if he stole any of these, probably minus the Owl, he's probably feeling pretty okay. The Gangbust is going to get some work done, the 2-3 Argus can get some work done, and the Egg on board just to sort of, you know, reverse the brawl mechanic with the Egg.
Well, this is looking a bit scary, though, I'll be honest with you. Like, this Leroy Jenkins does not look like very much, but that's a lot of damage that could be coming out of nowhere for Powder. If he doesn't expect it, which probably he doesn't, it could be a problem.
You know,
now, one
this
thing to
can be
note is that
lethal,
there's
right?
a lethal with like an AoE effect, right?
Yeah, there's lethal with a slam, with a shield slam, with a bash, and
it's
not with this one. Wow, that was actually almost it.
Yeah, there was a chance that any AoE effect would kill the Imp, and then the Gorehowl goes face, like the 7 damage that it is. Here, there's probably a good argument to be made for playing Grom and trading away Sylvanas
Yeah,
if you want to steal a minion.
Yeah, I like Grom
definitely.
here, because you still armor up, so you gain the 4 armor, you kill 2 minions, and Sylvanas steals a 3rd, so this just removes as much threat as possible, whereas Gorehowl, although would be good over a few turns, he probably doesn't really want to take the damage at the moment.
I mean, the Gorehowl is just a 7 damage burst. It's basically a Leroy Jenkins for Warrior in this situation.
Yeah.
So keeping it in the hand when you already showed the Grommash on board is basically like a surprise factor that your opponent can use the 7 damage in the face and finish off the game.
And you never expect it, really. So everyone's so used to Gorehowl doing like so efficient trades with minions, and then it comes out with nowhere and just hits you for 7. Is it really rough? And this is going to be fairly important. There's still a lot of decent targets for Sylvanas to steal. But I think if you got something like the Juggler or the Gang Boss, it's going to be feeling pretty good.
He's considering, do I want to play for value, go face? Because if I go face, there's only 13 on board, and the odds of the damage piling up to the point where I die here is very slim.
And it just gives, unless there's a taunt, it's just lethal next turn just from hand with the Gorehowl. So, and I think he's seen both Argus now.
Yep.
Yeah, I think
both
he's
of them played.
Yeah.
So there's maybe a Voidwalker from Peddler number 2, but that's about it.
But he saw only 1 PO, and he didn't see a single Doomguard yet. That was kind of risky.
Well, that deck doesn't tend to run Doomguards, but you might be worried about Leroy.
Yeah.
You may be very worried about Leroy Jenkins.
Xixo was showing Leroy yesterday, so Powder seems to be shifting those gears really often. Sometimes with the aggressive deck, he's being overly safe.
And the other way around.
Yeah, and the other way around with the deck that should be overly safe, right? So, interesting, because still, like, Xixo was already low on health, so interesting.
Yeah, I think the thing as well with Powder, though, is even with Leroy power overwhelming, would he have needed still the Juggles to hit?
No, that was enough.
Would have been 10.
No, you were a little shy.
Yeah,
because you were missing.
20,
Actually, that was 23 exactly, right?
PO and Leroy was exactly enough.
Oh, was it? Oh, okay.
3 specifically, I think, to hit the armor count.
And that's about it.
Yeah, that's going to be it. He does snipe off the Grom for the style points there, but Powder's actually just going to go. Oh, and there's a brawl. A little bit late, but hey ho, he's going to put Gorehowl.
Yeah, but Xixo is demolished morally right now.
Yeah, it's a very rough. You don't want to go up against Control Warrior, just generally speaking. And when you don't have Druid, you just don't want to go up against.
But he has Murloc Paladin.
Right.
It's actually an insanely good matchup versus Control Warrior.
But then the
It depends.
Druid is left against the Paladin.
Yeah, that's going to be the rough game.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah, that's going to be the rough game, but I think like Paladin has a pretty good matchup versus Control Warrior, because a lot of the time, you almost guaranteed the game is going to go late and you can draw through most of your deck. You just play the first anything, and it's not, the first one just does like, maybe 20 damage, 15 damage, whatever, but it's the second one that does like ludicrous amounts of damage, and unless the Warrior gets a really early True Heart, and then stacks up like a stupid amount of armor, then you're feeling pretty good as this Paladin.
I would say that Powder should even hard mulligan for the Justicar.
No doubt. No doubt in my mind. And an Ooze in Xixo's deck is going to be able to, I guess, nullify some of that damage coming in from weapons if he ever needs to heal for more than he already does. And Powder just keeps the weapons. Is he aware that Xixo's playing Murloc Valley?
He'll definitely be aware, and he'll probably be aware of the Ooze as well, because Xixo's game, he did play an Ooze on stream, and I have no doubt that Powder and also the rest of his team have not really researched this matchup and worked out exactly what Xixo's got in his list. He did get the Justicar.
Yeah, this is basically the card that Powder was looking for. I imagine he didn't hard mulligan for it, surprisingly. One of the things as well that is a bit aggravating when you're playing Warrior in a spot like this is the death by 1,000 cuts that the little 1-1s can represent. Little dudes just hitting you for 1 every turn, stacking up the damage. It gets a little frustrating.
Yeah, and also what's a really like interesting nuance of this deck is, there we go, you're just playing War Leader as a 3/3. If it attacks, fantastic, it's attacked. If it gets killed, fine, because you just bank it for anything later. So like anything that this 3/3 does is just an instant benefit for Xixo.
Right, one of the things as well that I tend to see in matchups like these is Paladins will be a little greedier with their War Leaders and play them only when they find a bluegill on that one turn to buff the damage immediately. Because yes, playing the War Leader on tempo against Warrior might feel good since you have to answer it, but very often, if they have the answer, you're missing out on some more potential damage. And if they stack up too much armor, that's your win condition out the window.
Correct. Oh, okay, so my role here will be just remembering which Murlocs died.
Okay.
I'll be
Right.
Damage.
I like that.
We'll just hand Lothar a notepad and he'll just go quiet for a few minutes. So it's like, right, 1 War Leader, done.
Yeah.
And this is also something Xixo has to remember as well. I've no doubt he's very proficient at doing this. If you take a deck like this to a tournament, you do have to count those Murlocs and remember exactly what you played. But
Not only Xixo, Powder has to be aware
Yeah,
of that
that's
as
very
well.
true.
Powder, even more importantly, I think that Powder has to be more aware than Xixo.
Yeah.
Because he needs to be on top of the, on top of that damage all the time.
Yeah, he's gonna be a little scared there because he saw the Justicar come out exactly on curve. Not being a coin in Powder's hand means this is basically the earliest it can come out.
Yep.
And that's very dangerous. And now I think at this point Powder has to start trying to pile up as much health as possible.
You have to use the hero power now every single turn. And then like the bash, you still have 2 minions that are just chipping off the small amount of HP, but that's sometimes that's enough. You just chip off the slow game, you ramp up with the armor, and that's about it what you need.
Because one of the ways that the Murloc Paladin deck can actually fail is when they're like forced into a heal they don't want to do.
Yeah.
Like if you get an uncomfortable, because Lay on Hands, like it's an amazing card, 8 mana, draw 3 cards. A lot of the time as a Murloc Paladin, you can Lay on Hands on 28 health on the card draw. But when you're forced to Lay on Hands in an uncomfortable position where that's your whole turn, you do nothing else, that's when you can really, just push them from Powder's point of view and just really, make every turn as awkward as possible for him.
Yeah. So the Aldor having already been used on the Justicar means the second one will need to find a better target. And again, Lay on Hands.
Yep, there we go.
Here at 26, he will overheal a little bit. Plus, given the amount of cards in hand, he will probably lose one from the top. Hopefully for him, it's not a Murloc that he needs.
Yep, this is huge. If he burns Old Murkai,
Or a Bluegill even.
That's basically game.
But yeah, I mean, he's almost just instantly not going to win the game.
Cross your fingers, Xixo. This is your card draw. This is the one that matters the most. Solemn Vigil
Oh, you
burning
can
away.
see 6 of the, oh my
Be
god.
okay? And he
And I
loses.
got it,
Okay.
that
He's
was
fine.
okay.
He's
It's
fine.
not
Yeah.
good.
Yes.
All right. Where?
But I don't think that was a correct decision this turn.
It felt a bit early. I think he might have miscounted the amount of cards left in his hand.
I think one of the issues there is like I understand needing to take the risk, but I don't think he needed to take the risk that turn.
Right.
That's the problem. Because if that was Old Murkai, the game just ends.
For Powder though, the plan is brawl for the first, anything can happen. You need to survive it, of course, so you need to ramp up the armor. But you need to survive the first, anything can happen. Deal with the board, because you have to deal with it anyway, and count your opponent that the other opponent doesn't have the second, anything can happen, and still ramp up with the armors. For now, we had 2 war leaders gone, and that's about it. So there's no threat so far.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, no damage coming in for the time being. Powder will see it coming from a mile away anyway. It'll be advertised with the Bluegill having to be played prior, the Murkai having to be played prior.
Exactly. I mean, as you just said, Lothar, with the there's an Old Murkai. So it is actually going to be played, which is important.
Yeah.
But the second this card is played, Powder's going to be like, right, okay, so there's 1 Old Murkai, 2 War Leaders, that's X damage, but without the charge Murlocs, he's still feeling pretty safe. Like,
Yeah.
he's very flagged when you're going to play the anything, and he needs to play around that health. And he still has plenty of answers. He's got 2 weapons. He's got the Revenge, Shield Slam. He's got Bash to gain even more armor, and then Easy Execute if he wants to just remove this Murkai.
So for now, the single Murkai will be dealing 8 damage. For now.
Yep.
because the double buff from the War Leader, and then the his
Plus
belt-
2 from the Merc.
Yes, and the 2 from the Murkai. With just the 3 minions,
Yep.
that's 8 damage. But a single auto Blue Warrior will ramp up the damage by 7.
Yeah. One of the problems as well is the way this Paladin deck can actually whiff is if those Blue Girl Warriors are bottom of the deck. Because then it just might be too late. You know, it might just take too long to get to it, and their powder will be
Just
too
to
much.
power.
Exactly, with just a card 6, you've just been too much of a good position to make that happen. And drawing into a heal bot is really not great for Xixo at the moment. If you look at his whole hand, he can clear off the Death Bite with the Ooze, which seems okay, but the rest of his follow-up is non-existent. And what I really like as well from Powder is he isn't rushing this Dr. Boom, because what Dr. Boom does this turn, there you go, is actually give him a good one of those big blowout AoE turns that Paladin can do with a quality with either Consecrate or Wild Pyro to just wipe a whole board.
Correct.
Yeah, when you've seen 2 Aldors as well, the Dr. Boom must look a little bit more appealing. You might think, yeah, it might just live. We've seen Inequality, I've seen 2 Aldors. I don't think this deck is going to be stacking Humilities necessarily. Some of the older versions were trying to run, a heavy Keeper of Ultimons, Humility, Aldors, like trying to vary minion control route, and then card draw eventually became the norm.
Yeah, and even Humility we actually saw from Amnesiac, I believe,
Right.
in his deck from the NA Championship.
Pretty
so it's definitely a possibility, and there's a lot of different ways that this deck can be built, which makes it super interesting. I kind of like the full cycle version myself.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna draw my whole deck every single game, and then just you have to deal with it. But the boom does come down on much like safer board, and speaking of Humility, there we go.
There we go. That's the pickup that Xixo wanted, though, for real. That is the
Is
one.
it needed that much? I mean, you still have the equality.
Equality, yeah, I could see that. So you
Look
lay
at
on
this
hands.
lay on
here.
hands.
He's gonna
Tell
tank the
you.
Boombot. Tank that Boombot.
Heal for 1, draw 3 cards. Good
Hey, I guess
card.
Doomsayer in this spot like this is actually forcing this Dr. Boom to wait before it deals damage to face.
Yeah, well also, this is one of the combos you actually do, and why Humility is actually in the deck as well. It can be used on its own just to reduce the damage, but one of the plays when a big minion comes out, you Humility and Doomsayer.
Yeah.
And then you say, well, you can't really answer with what's on the board, and then you can't play any more minions unless you can directly deal with this Doomsayer this turn.
Just you wait for the day that people play Humility with Enter the Coliseum.
Oh,
You enter the Coliseum and then
combos.
you Humility whatever's left, and it's like, yeah, you have a 1-attack minion, congratulations.
Good work.
You've done nothing. And the Ooze, ironically, will die to a weapon.
will it?
I imagine so, but
I think like valuing the 3 HP is more
Yeah.
important.
okay, I could see that.
And you play around a Solemn Vigil as well.
You're right.
Yeah, and I think what this is doing is really showing Powder's understanding of this matchup, in where he's actually just, his first thing he's doing every single turn before
Armor
anything
up.
else happens is armor up, armor up, armor
He
up.
missed
Every
one
single
of
time.
them, but
exactly.
that was on
when
the
he
Dr. Boom
played
turn.
the Dr. Boom and
I was wondering on that turn if perhaps maybe just waiting for the Dr. Boom since there's no rush was correct, but with the amount of health he's got, he still needs to go quite a long way before he's safe from the double anyfin.
And this is something actually, the situation Xixo's in now is one of those awkward ones where he has card draw, but his hand is so full that it's a little bit risky, like drawing. If he drew into more cards that he couldn't really play that turn or make work, it would have been a bit rough. But he did get one of those Blue Girl Warriors, which is really important now. They're pretty much the only cards he's looking for.
Another 5 armor. This is stacking really fast. There's a Truesilver champion in the Paladin deck, right?
Yes.
We haven't seen any,
They
but
normally
yes,
run
should be
2
there.
as a fairly standard build.
Another card draw, another
Oh, the
brawl.
second brawl as well.
Well, now he needs just to survive both anything happens.
Yeah,
Well,
but-
I mean, if you survive both and you have brawls for both, then it's like
And that's why the second brawl is super important.
and this is also why Gorehole is so important, because it will be effective for both anything.
Exactly, yeah. He can actually just, now he has the tools to deal with both anythings. He just has to make sure he survives the initial wave of attack from each one. But he's still got more time. He's still not seen these Blue Girl Warriors yet.
Yeah.
He's, there is one in hand that we can see, but Xixo has to play it before the anything can draw it out of the graveyard.
All right, looks like it's going to be coming out. So the hope here is that he's going to get recurrent damage from this, given that the board is cleaned up. Like, if you can get that Blue Gill to do any more work with the second one coming up, you can basically win the game. I feel like the amount of armor is not quite up there yet for
No,
the
but
double
the Shield
anything,
Maiden's
but it's
gonna
about
help.
to get even higher.
Yeah, I like the Harrison now. You just remove the weapon. That's also 4 damage, which is basically plus 4 armor.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And also, like, the heal he doesn't care about. The Paladin self just doesn't matter in any way, shape or form here for Powder here. But the removal of the damage to himself is super important. And also, one of the key cards that can mess up an anything turn is that Sludge Belcher, because that's just so awkward to trade into. You have to use all of your mana to play the anything. So it's not like you can play anything and then Owl, Sludge Belcher, ignore it. You have to run at least 2 minions in to kill both parts of the Sludge Belcher, and that reduces the damage so much from that combo piece.
23 times. That's how many times was that Blue Girl Warrior killed?
Overkill, yeah, it died. It has 23 deaths at this point.
First anything can happen.
Whoa,
I'm
without
kinda
the second
surprised.
Bluegill, didn't wait for the second Bluegill Warrior.
I'm really surprised by that.
Is that a mistake,
Well,
Xixo?
Wait, let's count the damage, because he will have 2 Wall Leaders and a Murkai and a Blue Girl Warrior. So second anything can happen, which is completely randomized.
He has to get...
So he would have to get 2 Murkais and 2 Blue Girl Warriors and 3 Wall Leaders. That's the perfect scenario. In that scenario, you deal, let's count the damage. So you have 3 charge minions, this is 6 damage.
6 damage right away.
Then you have 7 Murlocs in play from 2 Murkais, that's 14.
Yep.
So you have 20. Then you have 3 charge minions, which each
Plus
is
6.
plus 4.
3 war leaders, right?
3 warriors plus 6, so that's 18.
Yeah, he would actually have...
So that's 38.
Yeah, that's 38 damage. So it's still very... He needs to find... I'm surprised he didn't wait for the second Bluegill.
I think one of the problems is if the blue, although he is edging towards the bottom of his deck, if the Bluegill's the last minion he draws, like the last card, did he think, oh, well, maybe that's too late, and the Warrior was stacking up so much armor. And this gives more turns for the Warrior to play cards like Belcher, Shield Maidens, maybe another Shield Block, or something like that to really stack it up. So he's going to play the Shield Maiden there. He doesn't play the Brawl to clear the board, so yeah, you just reduce it down.
Well, he
to
guarantees
1.
a single Bluegill to stay alive on this spot, though, from the
Oh
looks
my
of it.
God.
He's gonna have a
4
charge
war
main for
leaders,
sure.
right?
He needs to find war leaders way more than he wants. That is not quite...
That's not
one
it.
off?
That's one off.
Oh,
That's one
wow.
off. That's
It's not over. Truesilver champion top deck could still... Oh, never mind.
That's like, I'm really surprised. How can you do that move without counting the damage first? I'm really surprised.
Well, let's see it, though. Let's see what happens past this point.
Yeah, so what needs to happen now is Powder needs to armor up because Consecrate's a card.
I think you can't really armor up. You need to play Belcher.
Yeah,
Well, you're
he's
dead
not
to
playing around
Consecration,
Consecrate.
right?
Yeah, but you have to choose. Are you playing around a weapon? Or are you playing around... Actually,
No, he plays
no,
around the weapon with armor.
you're
If he armors up,
correct.
doesn't die to
Armor up
any
is
card.
way better, and just Deathlock seals the deal.
There we
Definitely
go. The
correct.
armor up 3-drop should do it. And now, Xixo, Equality, Pyro, Truesilver. Oh, goodness.
my God.
You are serious.
Wow.
The true
Off the top.
Silver with the damage to finish off Powder.
And then-
Unbelievable.
That's the other Murloc.
That was the only card that was actually
yes.
the
Yeah.
game right now.
That was it.
And there was only one in the deck.
One Truesilver left.
Wow.
With that Consec could take it.
That was very, very risky from Xixo. Actually being one off, although he did have the Consecrate with the armor up going for 4, and not having a way to win after that was insane.
If
I
he
am
wouldn't
my-
top deck this Truesilver,
Yeah, he
that
lost.
was end
Yeah,
of
he
the
just
game.
lost, yeah.
Well, I'll say it. Pretty risky anything from Xixo, almost to the point of being a misplay. But maybe he was actually just, as you said, wondering whether or not he'd ever be able to get to that Bluegill before the armor stacked up to perhaps 50.
Well,
And then
judging by
that's the
his
point.
reaction after the second anything can happen, he was surprised that he's not killing his opponent.
Yeah.
He looked surprised, genuinely.
Yes. So I think he miscounted.
And also one of the problems as well is each player only gets a certain amount of time on their turn, and as you were doing then, Lothar, trying to work out every single outcome of the potential second anything was actually quite difficult to work out potential damage in a short period of time. So definitely a rough one, and now Xixo has his Paladin again versus the Druid list from Powder. And this is another SK list, I believe, as we saw the Spectral Knights
I
and
totally forgot that this is the list with the Flame Juggler.
Yeah, and the Spectral Knights being back.
and the
Pilot Sky Golem.
Sky Golem, that's the way. I was going to say Shredder, and I was like, that's not the name of that
It's
card.
not as
It's
overpowered.
the big Shredder.
Yeah. Well, so the Doomsayer here could be played for tempo. I imagine it will happen, but with the Innervate Keeper, That's the perfect answer to deal with this, and it leaves you in command if you really want to take it.
Is the Innovate Keeper really...
It's good. You keep the mana crystal, right? So you have
That's true.
You get
Yeah,
to
yeah, you
save
guard
your
the
wild
mana
growth.
And also, he has a lot of options as well. He's got really good follow-up with multiple minions. And at the moment, this is one way this deck, because this is a very strange Druid deck to start off with. It plays a really weird selection of minions, but sometimes you're just too fast for the Paladin as well. You can actually just be so aggressive that they don't have the mana or the time to draw into the answers quick enough to wipe the board.
But you play double combo, right?
Yeah.
You kind of have to.
Yeah, you still chuck in that.
Well, nice job, Doomsayer. You may not have brought up the end, but at least you killed. I mean, you tanked 1 damage.
Yeah, that's always something. You can tank up a Sylvanas as well if there's a Sylvanas in the Druid deck.
Yeah.
Boom bots.
Murkai.
Okay, so you know, for all the tough Doomsayer into Keeper of the Grove that Xixo might have to deal with, he still has a decent hand to counter what the Druids are coming out with.
Yep, and he does actually, which is pretty important, reduce the mana crystal back down to 4 as Druid's 5 drop. You don't want to see a Druid of the Claw that turn if you can afford it. And he does just follow up with the Raptor instead, which is still pretty good. It's another durable minion that isn't going to just straight up die to a flat Consecrate. It will summon another minion afterwards, even though it is only a 1-drop. It's better than nothing because you do just need to pressure the Paladin early and try and just really finish the game before you can get the big combos going.
Well, Xixo is going to play for the board here. He's going to develop the 3/3 Murloc alongside Hero Power. He's got the Equality Consecration in case the board is, there's no more death rattles on it. Gives him a clean board clear. Kind of an interesting matchup, I feel, from Xixo's perspective. You've got to be super worried about the burst because you can't just spend an entire turn doing nothing but lay on hands if there's a board.
That's true, because basically you don't heal at all.
Yeah, you might even, it might be a negative.
Yeah, you'll just take more damage the following turn
Exactly.
by healing, yeah.
So what do you think about charging the minion right now?
I'd say that's correct. We'll have to see what the Raptor comes out with. That is a pretty decent card to use if like a Belcher comes out from Xixo.
Because the problem is like a single equality, right? Is really efficient to deal with those minions right now.
Right.
I mean, if it would be taunted up.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, exactly. Like whatever this board dies to, if it's taunted up or if it's charged, is the same.
I think Powder's got a really easy way to deal with this Silenced Doomsayer in the form of the Viper, but it does look like it's going to get cleared up with the Equality Consecrate. And Powder there instantly making a note of there's one of those full board clears that's been played. So now he can say, right, there's one gone, and just forget about it for now.
Second keeper, I would say that's the play.
I like the putting minions on the board as soon as possible, just because the Paladin is forced to answer a 2/4 afterwards.
And also Paladin,
but you might want to keep that for Belcher.
That's a good point. A Belcher might be very important to kill as soon as possible. Sorry, to silence as soon as possible. But at the same time, you know that you want to play Dr. Boom next turn, right? So the keeper is being held in the hand.
Almost no matter what. Now here you're forcing the Paladin to have the Aldor, the Humilities, or the second Equality clear.
The thing is, though, against Druid, even the Humility on the Dr. Boom and leaving it can still Savage Roar.
Right.
So, like, they're still going to do some damage, and the Paladin's on 14 now on
That'd
turn
be why
8.
he kept the Keeper, to silence the debuff.
Oh, that's a
that'd be
very
sick.
good point. Very good point. This is the...
And that'll actually change everything at this
Right, in this
point.
spot, it will.
Because he can't Humility and lay on hand, so I imagine it's more likely looking at Humility into just a heal bot, just the naturally safe play here.
That sounds visual.
But that's going to change everything, because the heal bot's going to heal for 8, and Powder can potentially just open back up for 7 with the Dr. Boom.
Well, he can play Humility, right? Right this then.
Oh wow, Pyro Humility looks very appealing. If you're trying to clear the board up, lets you also play an extra 1/1 at the end of the turn, and then you can play all your healing.
The problem is, like, this is something that we saw so often during the handlock era, right? There was a Peacekeeper on
Right.
Yeah, and then silence. Whack.
Very. If the boombots hit well here, there could be a.
on a 1 damage to the face, which is quite unfortunate for Powder.
So
but is it lethal? Wait.
I think.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
it's
lethal.
lethal. Wow.
And
That's exactly
going to
lethal.
see it with the Innovate into Force of Nature.
That is it, and Powder's gonna take
Wow.
it.
1 damage was enough to seal the deal for Powder, and he is advancing to top 4. of the Truesilver Championships.
Yeah, and there's a
Congratulations.
Like,
Yeah, I did it despite the top deck Truesilver champion.
And you know what? Like, I'm not surprised. He's probably relieved right about now because that was an insane set, and it was just so close every game. And the Paladin game looking pretty good for Powder, and then just the Truesilver off the top 10. They'd probably been a little bit worried, but the Druid deck made it through in the end.
Yep, that's true. And it's not the same Druid as everyone plays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? It has Raptors, it has the Flame Jugglers,
Spectral Knights.
Spectral Knights, so it's something, well, maybe not, let's say, new, but it's a hybrid.
It's been, let's just say that card has been phased out of Druid for the most part. It used to be super popular back in the Naxxramas era, but it's nice to see those cards being rehabilitated.
True.
Yeah, and it's just a completely different take on a deck that I think everyone's maybe a little bit tired of in terms of just very standard mid-range Druid. And it's really impressive that he's actually chosen to take this deck, because this is a risk. He's probably not played, like a million games like we all have of mid-range Druid. So it's working out for him, though, which is going to be really good. But there we go. Powder is going to go on to the top 4, and we're just going to go to a short break while we set up the next match. So stay tuned, guys, and we'll be back soon.